The 2025 NBA playoffs are about to begin, but for the OKC Thunder, it's quite fascinating that their double big man lineup, which features 7'1" Chet Holmgren and 7' Isaiah Hartenstein, still remains relatively new. Looking back, Hartenstein broke his hand in the preseason, while Chet Holmgren suffered an injury to his pelvis back in November, which is why the two big men didn't get to share the court for OKC until late February. All in all, Holmgren and Hartenstein have played only 316 minutes together on the floor in the 20 games they've both been available this season, so basically we're still going to be looking at a small sample size when analyzing their on-court impact together. Nonetheless, with both big men on the floor, the Thunder have sported an elite 12.5 net rating. Basically, the limited sample size still definitely offers a glimpse of how the Thunder becomes a completely different monster with their two big man lineup. So in this video, let's talk about how being able to play two 7-footers together on the floor just further raises OKC's championship ceiling. So let's get to it. When the Thunder signed Isaiah Hartenstein this past offseason, GM Sam Presti told the media that they expected Hartenstein to make OKC's play much more diverse stylistically, and this has definitely been most noticeable on the offensive end so far. One of the biggest reasons as to why OKC lost in the second round last year was the team's overdependence on SGA's drive and kick game. But now, pairing a 7-foot big man like Hartenstein who makes decisions with the ball in his hands like a guard with another 7-footer in Chet Holmgren who has the same interchangeable guard-like skills has just allowed OKC to open up more gaps in the defense, even in those possessions when Shai doesn't necessarily drive into the paint or when he simply acts as an off-ball screener. Just like in this possession, it's Hartenstein who initiates the offense at the wing, while on the weak side, you can see Shai acting as a screener, running a pin-down action on Chet's defender. This allows Chet to have an open cutting lane, which iHart takes advantage of as he throws the precise entry pass to Chet for the easy finish at the basket. This time, with Shai initiating, Chet sets the ball screen which automatically forces his man to blitz Shai. Meanwhile, on the weak side, iHart and J-Dub runs a little decoy action off the ball, forcing MPJ to rotate on the wing. And now with Chet potentially finding Dort in the corner, Jokic here is forced to rotate as well. And with Najee unable to recover, iHart's left wide open around the dunker spot and Chet easily finds him with a quick entry pass. Well, for sure, OKC playing their two bigs together do come with a cost. Looking at it, with only one of those bigs on the floor, the Thunder have sported a league-best 11.7 turnover percentage. But with both Chet and iHart sharing the court together, OKC's just middle of the pack in terms of taking care of the ball. Also, with only one of those bigs on the floor, the Thunder are sporting the best transition mark per possession in the entire league. But with both of their bigs on the floor, OKC's producing the second worst transition output in the entire NBA, only behind the Charlotte Hornets. But then again, the Thunder have been willing to play a little bit slower with two 7-footers on the floor because in return, they're actually getting some advantages in the half court. And one of those trade-offs for OKC is obviously now, when you have a wide-bodied 7-footer like Hartenstein who's one of the best screeners in the entire NBA, you're basically allowing Chet Holmgren's skills as a 7-foot wing who can put the ball on the floor and who can make reads as a pick-and-roll ball handler to be showcased even more in the two-man game. In this play, you can see iHart running a dribble handoff with Chet, and then he proceeds to set a ball screen to force the slower Nurkic to get switch on Chet. Chet takes advantage by attacking Nurkic on the baseline, turning into a slight post-up while using his speed and length to finish at the rim. This time, Chet and iHart run a pick and roll in the paint. As Chet receives the ball in the high post, Hartenstein sets the ball screen. Sabonis is forced to slightly blitz the ball, which allows iHart to dive and catch the lob. Keon Ellis tries to rotate at the last minute, but iHart's just too big as he finishes the end one at the basket. But then, for OKC, it also goes both ways. Again, even without being ball dominant, Chet Holmgren is still a 7-footer who can score either as a lob threat at the rim or as a catch-and-shoot outlet from behind the arc. And Hartenstein, being a formidable playmaking big man, especially out of short roll situations, has definitely further fueled Chet's ability as a play finisher from everywhere on the floor. It's one thing to have a 7-foot big man who passes the ball like a guard, but it's another thing when you play him alongside another 7-footer who lurks around in space just waiting to catch the ball. Right here, iHart sets the ball screen for Shai, and with Jokic blitzing, iHart rolls to the paint. With Jokic's late recovery, the Nugget zone is quickly broken. Gordon has to stick into the paint, allowing iHart to swing the ball to J-Dub in the corner. This then forces MPJ to help, leaving Chet wide open from the top of the key. J-Dub makes the swing pass, and Chet drains the three-pointer with no one to contest. Again here, iHeart runs a dribble handoff play with Shai. Shai finds him on the short roll, and with Chet stalking around the baseline, it only takes one slight rotation from Jabari Smith for Chet to run into the dunker spot as he finishes the alley-oop off iHeart's lob pass. Overall, guarding lineups with both Chet and Hartenstein on the floor is just gonna be hard for opposing teams who can't afford to place two versatile bigs on the floor at the same time. But then, even when playing against teams with strong two big man lineups such as Milwaukee, we've seen OKC's 7-foot combo assert their size and feel with some pin-down actions, which they use to give the Brook Lopez and Giannis frontcourt some problems. In this possession, you can see iHeart and Chet diving into the paint while guarded by the Bucks frontcourt while Shai runs a ball screen action with Cason Wallace. Right here, you can see iHeart with a semi-pin down on Giannis, allowing Chet to flare out. Now, with Giannis pulled away from the paint and with Brook Lopez forced to wall off Cason Wallace on the roll, Hartenstein gets the vertical space he needs to catch the lob pass from Cason without anyone to stop him at the rim. Again here, on the weak side, with Chet being guarded by Giannis, Hartenstein sets a pin down to give Chet space to receive the pass from Caruso. Lopez got no choice but to momentarily switch, but iHeart's presence underneath still forces him to maintain a slight drop, so Chet takes advantage of the gap by rising up for the 15-foot jumper against the late contest. Well, without a doubt, the Thunder would still be offensively dominant even with just one big man on the floor. In those minutes, with just one of Holmgren or Hartenstein on the floor this season, OKC has still sported the 123.8 offensive rating, which would still be the best in the entire NBA. But it's just that in those minutes when both bigs are on the court, OKC's offensive rating further skyrockets to 125.2. Another thing is, OKC knew that they had a rebounding problem last season, and so far, their two big man lineups have definitely helped solve that issue. OKC lineups with both Chet and Hartenstein have annihilated teams on the offensive glass with a 32.4 offensive rebounding percentage, which is better than that of any team outside of the Houston Rockets. More importantly, Chet and Hartenstein lineups are also sporting a 79.7 defensive rebounding percentage, which would be the best mark in the entire NBA. But then, the challenge for OKC was to solve those rebounding problems without creating new ones, particularly in terms of floor spacing. This was obviously a concern entering the year with Hartenstein being a non-shooting big man, and so far this season, iHeart has attempted 19 three-pointers and has missed all of them. But the reason Hartenstein still fits the Thunder schemes is because he doesn't approach offense like a traditional big man. With him having the playmaking flair and vision needed to play a point center type of role, the Thunder are still essentially able to play their 5-out offense even with iHeart on the floor. When he catches the ball above the break or around the elbows, the paint is still typically going to be open, and this in turn allows him to find teammates on cuts to the basket. More importantly, he's also learning how to leverage Chet Holmgren's presence on the floor to help him manipulate defenses as a dribble handoff hub, where he utilizes some fake handoffs to catch defenders off guard before he barrels his way to the basket. Just like in this play, Chet is defended by Jalen Brown. He passes the ball to Hartenstein, who seemingly appears to be running a handoff action, but he actually keeps the ball. Seeing Luke Cornett on an island, iHeart just uses his strength to bulldoze his way into the paint as he scores against the helpless defender. This time, you can see Chet finding iHeart on the side action. Chet sets a ghost screen on Jokic, which allows iHeart to attack the smaller MPJ on the switch, using his size and footwork to finish the tough shot in the paint. But then, in the playoffs, Hartenstein should also cause instant problems for defenses with the signature floaters, which he drains from around 10 to 16 feet away from the basket. This season, he's shooting those floaters at a highly efficient 54.8% clip, and that shot could definitely provide an immediate advantage for OKC in the postseason setting we're in. Teams are usually more focused on guarding either the rim or the three-point line. Again, having two 7-footers on the floor gives OKC almost unlimited options on the offensive end, but when you look at it, the trade-off for going big still might be most impactful on the defensive end. In those minutes, with both Hartenstein and Holmgren on the floor, OKC has completely shut the paint down, allowing only 18.8% of opponent shot attempts to come at the rim, which is the best mark in the NBA this season. Overall, when looking at those Holmgren and Hartenstein on and off combinations, it's also those lineups with both bigs on the floor that produces the most suffocating defensive rating for the Thunder. Well, first of all, with their two big man lineup, the Thunder are now able to play a more conservative style of defense without over-relying on forcing turnovers all the time. Most notably, with both Hartenstein and Holmgren being versatile defenders who can slide between the paint and the perimeter, OKC can switch their big man without having to be too worried in terms of protecting the rim. Typically, it is Hartenstein who guards the opposing team's center while Chet acts as a roaming last line of defense around the paint, but those roles are also interchangeable. Here, you can see Hartenstein acting as the big man defender in the pick and roll while Chet guards the opposing team's wing on the corner. Here, it seems like Jackson Hayes is primed to dive all the way to the paint, but as Reeves makes the pass, Chet immediately rotates and together with Hartenstein stifles Hayes above the rim. This time, it's Chet who guards Jokic in the perimeter while Hartenstein pulls the smaller Christian Braun into the paint. Westbrook is able to set up Jokic in a give-and-go action, but as Jokic is about to slip into the paint, Ihart makes the tag. Obviously, Jokic is gonna find Braun open, but both Ihart and Chet together with Shai recover to stifle Braun under the basket. Also, the good thing about OKC having some switchable guard defenders is that they can afford experimenting, running some 2-3 zones and some funky matchups, which allow their two big men to both act as help defenders. Here, OKC runs a 2-3 zone with their bigs stationed in opposite ends of the baseline. As Charlotte sends the ball out to the perimeter, you can now see Chet guarding the 290-pound Nurkic in the paint, while Hartenstein waits to help on the driving Josh Green. Although by himself, Isaiah Joe already does a good job of sticking with Green and forcing him into a miss. In this possession, on the weak side, you can see Hartenstein guarding the 6'4" Jalen Clark and Holmgren guarding the 6'9" McDaniels, while it's actually J-Dub who gets to guard a much bigger Naz Reid at center. Both Ihart and Chet are in position to stop a play from developing in the paint, but J-Dub takes matters into his own hands as he strips the ball away from Reid, leading to the Thunder gaining possession. Well, this is another thing that makes OKC really dangerous. They're a team who can operate in different shapes and sizes. Earlier in the season, when all of Hartenstein, Holmgren, and even backup big man Jalen Williams were hurt, it was 6'6" J-Dub who acted as the team's rim protecting big man, and they've actually proven that they can win a ton of games even while playing small ball. But at the end of the day, in the playoffs, the Thunder's new big lineup will just allow them to survive bad shooting nights and will make them much more capable of making defenses pay for blitzing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But more importantly, it should also allow OKC to match up really well against either the size of Nikola Jokic, the own double big man lineup of the Houston Rockets, or the unproven chemistry of the LA Lakers in a potential 7-game series. So thank you guys. If you've actually made it this far into the video, feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this has been Real Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.